Hey, you guys, we're going to introduce Mr. Jim Swanson before we make our next presentation from Livermore National Labs. He's going to come up and say a few words. He wasn't really on our program, but he's a good stand-in. Could you guys help me in welcoming Jim from Lawrence Livermore National Labs?
I don't need the mic. Just ask my wife. For those that have sat here and listened to me blabber on, I'll try not to repeat what's happening. I've tried to give presentations over, now it's been almost 11 months since my first one, talking a little bit about the laboratory, what we do, our mission, our goals. I've spent a little time helping you understand some of the common mistakes that are made by small businesses as they submit proposals, not only to the laboratory, but to governmental entities as a whole. Last time I spent some time talking a little bit more about the science and what we do at the laboratory. And Valerie cornered me today because she said, "No, you don't have to speak today," is what she told me when I accepted the invite. And she cornered me today and said, "Well, can you talk?" And I said, "Well, yeah, the bird fly." And so what I'd like to do today is I kind of introduced something last time towards the end of my presentation, talking about, again, what we heard from Genentech about a mentor-protege program. Some of you have actually been kind enough to respond back to my original request, talking about the fact that the laboratory is anticipating and is planning and is moving forward with a mentor-protege program that's going to focus on service-disabled vet companies, basically locally. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, the folks at NNSA, the folks that give us the money to do the research, have asked that we increase our utilization of service-disabled vet companies. So actually our goal this year had doubled from what it was last year. And so that's a kind of a primary driver. Like many entities, we're having a hard time matching requirements with candidate companies. And so what the thought is with the Mentor Protege program that we're putting forward is to send out an open invitation for local service-disabled vet companies to contact us, to express their interest, and to present to us a business opportunity, a business plan on how the entity, the service-disabled vet entity, can benefit from a relationship with the laboratory. And it's not just give me more business. What this is about is business is almost secondary to the primary goal of the Mentor Protege program, which is really to assist you in areas where you have deficiencies in your business. And that can be in an operations area, it can be in a marketing area, it can be in an accounting area, an HR area. And what we're trying to do is match skills, knowledge, and ability of laboratory resources with the service-disabled vet entity. The reason why I'm focusing this on the Northern California area is because we currently have a couple of proteges that are active at the laboratory that we're helping through this process. The challenge is one of the largest challenges is geographical. One is in Dallas, the other is on the East Coast, and it's just difficult to bring resources in and allow that interaction between the laboratory resources and the protege resources. And so the thought now is we're a little bit more mature, a little bit smarter than we were a couple of years ago when we kicked this off. We want to now focus in the area so it's easy. It's an easy car ride out to the laboratory. It'd be an easy car ride for the laboratory resources to get to you as the protege to help you through this process. Now, last time I was here, I think it was in October, I thought, well, surely by this time I'd have the program out on the street, invitations for proposals to come back in, and then it was overcome by a number of events. We're now looking at sometime early after the first of the year, we clear the holidays, get back on, back into the office, work on what the request is going to look like. We are going to go out and using CCR, go out and look for local companies and contact them. But I absolutely invite you to submit your request or your expression of interest to me. If you want, you can see me afterwards. I give you my business card and you can send that in. So that's a little bit about the program that I chatted about last time. I thought we'd be further along. Unfortunately, we're not, but it's not a dead program. We are going to move forward with it. It's in my performance appraisal to deliver something by the end of our fiscal year, which is September 30. These things take a little time, so I'm starting to get to where I need to panic, and that's a good place for me to start working, is basically panic. Always, when we talk about the laboratory, there's always this discussion of, well, what's going on at the laboratory? What opportunities exist for me? A couple things are kind of working against us right now. Last time we met, I kind of talked a little bit about, there was still some glimmer of hope that we were going to get some stimulus money in to do some construction, demolition, reconditioning, some TI type work at the laboratory. That appears now to have completely evaporated. I'm afraid that the success of Cash for Clunkers may have done us in, and a lot of that money had to go elsewhere. So a lot of the opportunities in the construction space really are kind of limited. There is always, though, we're talking about a $470 million procurement budget is what we kind of send out in contracts each year. So it's not like it's gone completely. But areas that we always are looking for qualified companies is in IT. We buy a lot of IT hardware, software, some IT services, but again, it's really kind of specialized. Environmental, of course, is always kind of those things are always going on at the laboratory. Small projects, bigger cleanup projects that they kind of pop up. And then the laboratory is essentially 1 square mile. It's its own city. We have a cafeteria, a restaurant, we have a fire department, we have a police department. So anything that you can think that a city would use, we use at some level. And so a lot of our contracting opportunities are in these areas of common commercial commodities and services. Having said that, over time, the laboratory has really shrunk its workforce, specifically in the area of operations and business. And in order to continue to deliver a quality service to the organization, the procurement department had to come up with a more efficient way to acquire goods and services, specifically commercial goods and services. And so what we have is now a long list of long-term commodity type contracts and agreements for these kind of commercial goods and services. You know, the good news is if you win one, it's a long-term deal. The bad news is if you're outside looking in, it's going to be a while before one of these things come back up for renewal. But every year, there's a good dozen or so of these agreements that come up for renewal. And they're for everything. They're for office supplies, industrial supplies, electrical supplies, lab supplies, HR-related activities like plaques that they're handing out today. We buy a lot of that stuff. Travel services. So the list of goods and services that we buy pretty much covers the gamut of what the marketplace would offer at some level. There are other challenges that we're facing, though. We as the collective, myself as the acquirer, you as the seller, the government has kind of woken up a little bit, and they've started talking about this thing called the enterprise. And what's happening, it started within the NNSA complex, and it's kind of expanding now within the entire DOE complex. And what's happening is over the past couple of years, the government has come to the prime contractors, Livermore being one of those prime contractors, and asked us to participate with the other prime contractors in coming up with a way to, as a collective, buy goods and services. Again, the primary focus is in these areas of commercial goods and services. It's one of those, it's always the same thing. It's a good news, bad news story. What's happening is that Livermore is one of 7 facilities within the NNSA complex that's participating in this enterprise initiative that is looking at all of the facilities, the laboratories as well as the weapons manufacturing locations, to consolidate their acquisition activities, look for common goods and services, and write a single agreement that is an umbrella agreement that covers delivery of those goods and services to all 7 NNSA facilities. The good news is, if you win one of those, it's even more money. The bad news is, if you don't win one of those, then you've lost out on even a bigger fish that's available out in the ocean. And this thing is really kind of taking off. There's a number of commodities that are being reviewed, and they're in various phases of RFP